Blair Bowie, democracy advocate at the U.S. Public Research Interest Group, joins us now. Thank you very much for joining us. And in Jessica's piece, she talks a lot about how important Ohio is. And of course, there's a number of states that are important. But equally important is the amount of money that's poured into advertising in these specific states. And your group follows a lot of where so-called where does the money come from.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you so much for having me, Phil. I mean, the big story in this year's election has just been the huge sums of money that are being raised and spent as a result of the Supreme Court's 2010 Citizens United decision. In particular, we're seeing huge amounts of money being raised and spent by these outside groups. So groups other than the campaigns themselves, namely super PACs and dark money nonprofit groups.
Okay, so let's super PACs are basically sort of organizations who stand for one cause or another. In this particular case, usually for one candidate or one party.
Right.
But you talk about dark money. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure, yeah. So in the Citizens United case, the Supreme Court opened the door for corporations to spend unlimited money on the election. Now, that means business corporations, but it also means nonprofit corporations. So nonprofits are now allowed to spend directly to influence the election. And the thing about nonprofits is that they don't have to disclose who's giving them their money. So they've become this really convenient avenue for corporations, business corporations with big names, and mega donors who don't want their identities to be revealed to funnel money into the election anonymously.
Okay, so in the U.S. elections, individuals obviously are free to give money. But why is it a good or a bad thing that corporations or nonprofits, as you mentioned, why is it bad that they should or should not give money?
Yeah, so individuals can give money to a campaign and they make a really deliberate decision to support one campaign or another. And we've always had contribution limits that we generally believe to be attainable for most people, so that most people can get involved in elections funding at a similar rate. We value the principle of one person, one vote. But when a corporation can spend in elections, there's no sort of democratic checks or balances on how that corporation spends. Really, it's the CEO making a decision to direct money that was aggregated for an entirely different purpose. Say, people bought a lot of blue jeans. The CEO can then direct that blue jean money towards a certain candidate, and it was never meant to be spent in that way.
I do have something controversial I want to ask you, and this has come across in a number of different debates, and I want to get your take on it. But when you talk about corporations, corporations could be anywhere in the world, right?
Sure.
That as long as they have an office in the United States, they potentially could give money. So the argument then lies in, could a foreign company owned by foreigners affect the United States elections by the way they give money? Is that a realistic concern among folks?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a realistic concern. Foreign corporations are still banned from spending in elections. The Supreme Court did uphold that. But we know that the nature of corporations today is that they're mostly multinational. They're not American corporations or Chinese corporations. They're multinational corporations, and their interests exist in the multinational realm. So those types of corporations could say that they're based in the U.S., but they really have no interest in American policy per se.
All right, let's leave it at that. Blair Bowie, thank you so much.